Hey guys, insight number 3. We're in chapter 3 of Hebrews. And I've just called this wilderness places, or wilderness encouragement. I called it wilderness encouragement. Now, I don't have any notes for this week. I'm just teaching from the scriptures because it's just been amazing. Temple opened again after a 9-week break here in New Zealand. And as you know, during that 9 weeks, if you watch me regularly, I spent 4 of those in Utah. So that was pretty cool. It was really, really awesome. And I was super pumped to get back to the temple. But I have 3 days there and I'm exhausted. And it's raining today and I'm aching everywhere. So I haven't had time to write notes. So I'm sorry there's really notes, but just, get into this Hebrews. It's amazing stuff. Again, it is just really going to help you relationship with Christ and to remember what Christ did for us and help us live now. Now, it is written to people that were struggling to live the gospel because they were hanging on to traditions and beliefs of the past. And this is teaching that those things, yes, can be incorporated in, and some of them no longer need to be done because of the atonement of Christ. We don't need to do those things. But it reminds us these days, in this life, that there's always going to be something that we can give up to know Christ better, something that we can do better to get to know him. So these verses really apply to us. Even though they weren't written directly to us, we can really bring these into our lives. So let's look at chapter 3. We'll start off in, where are we? We'll give up 8. We'll go to 8. So he says in verse 8, so really it's a lot of the good stuff, and I've marked this as literally 4 through 15 or 16. There's a lot of talk in there around what to give up and wilderness moments. So just moments in the wilderness of life. We know what a wilderness looks like when we're wandering. We know that Moroni spent time in the wilderness, that Nephi spent time in the wilderness. It just means, it doesn't necessarily mean like a jungle. It'll probably appear mentally different for each of us, but it means while we're just wandering, trying to find answers, while we're suffering and looking for good things, those moments and those wandering moments, even if we're only doing it mentally, that's what he's talking about. So in verse 8 it says, harden not your hearts as in the provocation in the day of temptation in the wilderness. So Jesus was tempted too by Satan. And I always think, when we talked about this when we covered that part of scripture, how Satan ever thought he could tear down Jesus. I don't know. Maybe he's just that, I won't say naive because he's not, but maybe he's just that proud that he thought he could pull it off. Or maybe it was even I'll give it my best effort, but I don't know, arrogant maybe? I don't know that there's an English word to describe this. If you can think of some, drop them in the comments. But how would you ever think that you could tempt Christ and actually pull it off to get him to do something that was not in his core beliefs? You could certainly tempt us to do that, sure. But, I don't know. If you've got thoughts on that, I'd love to hear them. But anyway, I don't know that Christ was tempted. He may have been. Because he was hungry and he was tired. And it would have been so much easier to do what Satan was tempting him with. And that's for that immediate relief moment. And that's exactly where Satan comes in at us, for that immediate relief. He comes in with the, take the drugs, drink the alcohol, have that party tonight because, you need it right now. You have the chocolate, whatever it is. Or have that, little whatever with someone because, it's going to make you feel good. It's well, yeah, but long term, no. True peace comes in Jesus Christ and the relationship with him. And Jesus Christ didn't give in to those temptations, and he does not expect us to be like that yet, but he expects us to try. And that's the difference. We have to put in the effort and to do our best at it, but he already knows that we're going to fail at it. So that's okay, it's okay to do that because it's not a true failure, like we just said, in the other insight number 2. It's not a true failure. it's a tripping over, you fall down, and he comes and picks you up and says, it's all right, let's give it another go. So this is part of getting to know Christ, but he again went through that, so he knows what it's like. If you're thinking, nobody knows what it's like to be this tempted or this addicted to something or what, he knows, he gets it. So anyway, like looking at this, I like 12 too. Take heed, brethren, lest there be any of you an evil heart of unbelief and departing from the living God. So like if you're having any hesitations, focus on what you know and stick to that and strengthen that. 13 to 14 is beautiful. He said, exhort one another daily while it is called today, like as in the day. The footnote on that refers you to Doctrine and Covenants 45:6, which is another great scripture too about that. So, exhort one another daily while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. So, in other words, support each other every day. Be kind to one another every day so that you can be this strong. And in 14, for we are made partakers of Christ if we hold the beginning of our confidence steadfast unto the end. So run toward this, grab onto this, encourage one another, encourage people to not give up. And verse 13 there, if a day is called today, this is your job. If the day you're in is called today, which it is every day, right? That's your job. Encourage one another. Encourage yourself, encourage one another. And if we all encourage one another, great. And who is in your wilderness that you can encourage? Or who is your encouragement in your wilderness? Like even think about that too. And I'm part of a couple of ward chat groups. Is the one I used to be in, which actually I think only like 2 of the sisters in that group actually still are in that ward. The rest of us have moved out, but we're such a group of supportive friends. So even just this morning, somebody said, I really need a good chiropractor. Who's a good chiropractor? I'm like, oh, I know an excellent one. Here's my, thing. So this is supporting in that. And at the same time, instead of just going, oh yeah, here's an excellent chiropractor, I'm also like, are you going to be okay? And they're like, yeah, I just need some help with, and I'm like, sweet. But there's that small encouragement. And that chat might go quiet for days on end, and then somebody will say, hey, I need some of this, or can someone help me do that? And then ping, 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 the messages keep flying. So I think that's part of it too. That's one little example of who's my encouragement in my wilderness places and how I can encourage them in their wilderness places. But who is that, and how does that look for you? That looks like wherever you are, just being that, exhorting one another daily, which is what it says in 13. Exhort one another daily. And exhort is to remind. So remind one another daily while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. So again, we go back to Helaman. Remember. And he says sons, but he most well say daughters as well. Remember, my children, remember. It is upon the rock of our Redeemer, who is Christ the Lord, that you build your foundation. Remember Jesus. Remember Moses. Remember those people that have gone before you, because they are going to help you. You're linked to them genetically and through covenants to keep you going, to strengthen you, to uplift you, to carry you. And they do that because they know hard like no one else does. They do. They've been it, they've lived it, they get it, they help you, especially Jesus Christ. So have that relationship with him. It's just lovely. It's beautiful how he reminds them of Moses, because like he says, 17, but with whom was he grieved 40 years? Those people wandered for so much. And just last week I was talking to a missionary that left our ward about the story of Caleb and Joshua and how they wanted to go into the promised land, but the other people were like, no, don't see it. And they were negative about it and not wanting to trust God, so they wandered for 40 years. And Joshua and Caleb were like, let's do it, let's go, because yeah, it looks scary, but Christ is with us, we got this. And I always think of how I want to be Joshua and Caleb in this moment. In these wilderness moments, I want to be Joshua and Caleb, and I'm not always. Oftentimes I am the other people who doubt and don't want to go because it's frightening. But then I find strength in remembering Christ, and I can be like, oh, and I can remember Joshua and Caleb, and I can remember Moroni, and I can remember Nephi, and I can remember people like Mary Fielding Smith and Emma Smith and a whole slew of others. And I'm getting goosebumps talking about these people because they are my scriptural giants. And I can say, you know what? No matter what, I know Christ will find me by the side of the road and pick me up and walk me home. And I know that He is with me when I go into these places. And yes, it has been a hard week, and that's why I'm crying. But I know He can do that with me. I know that whatever wilderness place I'm in, I can do it. No matter what giants are in the land, no matter how many thorns are in that field, I can walk through it. Because He's with me, and I live as best I can. So I really encourage you to embrace those scriptures in this chapter 3, and I know I've gone over time, but yeah, exhort one another daily. Because in an uplifting and strengthening others in any day that's called today. I just love that. Any day called today, go and minister, because you'll get it back as well. And that strength you find in service will sustain you and bring you closer to Christ. So, okay, I'm going to compose myself. We're going to move over to chapter 4. But it is really, really good stuff in chapter 3. I honestly, please, have a good read of at least that one. And chapter 4 even. Chapter 3 and 4. Just cling to those. All right. Hang about. We are going to go discuss chapter 4. I'll see you there.